Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tipper's Den. My name is Whitney, and today is not a Monday Musings. It's actually a June wrap-up. So I'm going to be out of town. I normally record my Monday Musings and just go over the books from the previous week on Mondays and then upload it, edit it, and upload it right away. But I'm going to be out of town, and June was such a fantastic month that I really just wanted to do a full wrap-up. Even though I've talked about these books each week as I finish them, I really just kind of wanted to do a full wrap-up and just solidify my thoughts and everything like that. So since I'll be out of town, I'm pre-recording this, and that's what you're getting today. But I'll be back next week to talk about the books I've read the previous 2 weeks. But I had a fantastic June. I am really happy with how it went. I last minute decided to participate in Tarot Readathon, which is put on by Deja at Deja's Book World and Noelle at Noelle Sunday. I was on Team Swords, Bo at Bo's Books. It was actually the one, like, I was watching her and I was like, I just want to participate. And it's also co-hosted by Alexis at Alexis Fully Booked and the Roomies Digest, which is Christine and Mo. I loved being on Team Swords. I was very happy. I was able to get all the books read that I had planned on because I pre-pulled. So I pre-pulled all my tarot cards. I did 4 3-card spreads, which 3-card spreads has different options for the different spots your card fell in. So I did 4 of those, and then I had an extra pull, which was my lucky number 13. I had extra books I added in for the Tarot Readathon. I had 2 extra books that I just ended up reading because my holds from Libby came in. So I just ended up reading them anyway. And yeah, it was just a wonderful month. I'm very happy with what I got read, and I was happy that I was able to complete the books that I did pull. I snuck in the last one that last day and finished it up, so that was fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and go over stats, and then we'll talk about the books and what they fit for and all that. So I did end up reading, let me get to my stats here somewhere. Sorry, because I had the Tarot Readathon, my reading journal is a little bit different. So I ended up reading 19 books total. I did not have any DNFs. I read 13 of those books physically. I did not do any ebooks. I'm not a big ebook reader. And I ended up doing 6 audiobooks, which is a lot of audiobooks for me. My page count was 4,581 with an average of 152.7 pages per day. And my audio hours was 67 hours and 46 minutes with an average of 2 hours and 15.53 minutes per day. So fantastic. All of my books were fiction. I did not have any nonfiction, and I did not have any rereads. My top moves, I had 13 adventurous, 9 mysterious, 7 tense, and /dark. Those were tied with 7 each. My genres, again, these can overlap, but I had 7 that fit the fantasy genre, 5 science fiction, 5 romance, 4 thriller, 3 middle grade, 3 classics, 3 young adult, 3 literary, 2 mystery, 2 horror, 2 contemporary, and 1 dystopian. Yeah, just such a great reading month. I was so happy with what I got read. So let's see here. I did end up having 1 book that I did roll over, and luckily it worked for one of the weekly challenges, and I ended up adding on 3 extras. But let's go ahead. So the way I do it is I start from the bottom rating and work my way up to the top as far as star rating, and then I also have a top 3 that does not correspond with star rating. It's just the ones that really stick out in my mind that are going to stick with me. So yeah, let's go ahead and see what we got. So I did not have any DNFs, like I said, which for my purposes, any book I DNF, I list as a 1 star. Sometimes I rate it on like Goodreads and such. It depends on the reason I'm DNFing it. If it's just a book that just isn't for me, I don't rate it on the apps. I have Storygraph and Goodreads. But if there's like a specific problem, like it's really derogatory or something like that, I will rate it on the apps. And I'll just put I DNF'd at this point and then why. But no DNFs. And then I just had 2 2 stars, which is actually one book, but I listed them separate because one of them was specifically for Kim's game from Expedition Through Pages. I participate in TBR Trek, and I needed to read a book and then watch the movie. And so I chose Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and then I also read Through the Looking Glass. I enjoyed Through the Looking Glass a little bit more than Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and I watched the animated movie, which is based on both. But yeah, 2 stars for me. I kind of had a feeling I wasn't going to enjoy this. I never liked the movie growing up or anything like that. I didn't like the live action remakes. Like, I've never enjoyed just the nonsense of this. Like, it's very nonsensical, which is weird because, like, sometimes I like weird books that are just, like, don't make sense and are very whimsical. But in this case, like, it's just very off-putting to me for whatever reason. And Alice's Adventures in Wonderland in particular is like that, and she's very, like, I don't like Alice. She's very snotty. I don't like her attitude. And I, like said, I enjoyed Through the Looking Glass a little bit more. It made a little bit more sense in my mind. I can grasp it. And I get, like, she's dreaming and dreams don't always make sense, but I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what it is about Alice in Wonderland. I just don't like it. So yeah, both of these got 2 stars from me, though I could stand Through the Looking Glass a little bit more than Alice in Wonderland. So there is that. Just slide that back there. Then we had 3 stars, the bottom of which I was so disappointed by this. So this one actually worked for I added it on for Tarot Readathon, and it worked for the Sun. It was my third 3-card spread. It was in the 3rd spot, so I got double points for a 3-word title, and it was Sun, so a fun and joyful book. And for that, I chose The Princess Bride by William Goldman. Alice in Wonderland only worked for Kim's game, not for Tarot Readathon. But this one, I love this movie, and this one, I find it interesting, the narration style. So basically, it's fictionalized, but the author in this fictional world, like, his grandfather or father read him. I think in the movie it's the grandfather, but in the book it's the father. Read him this fictional book, The Princess Bride, when he was sick with pneumonia one year. And so he decided as an adult he wanted to abridge it and, just kind of write the good parts and not write all the nonsense that was in it. And that's how his father read it to him, was just these good parts. And so he's interjecting throughout the story, to, like, okay, like, this happened, but I'm taking it out for this reason, and yada yada. And he's interjecting. But in the very front, like, he interjects and he's talking about why he's abridging it and yada yada, and he's just disgusting. Like, he's just a disgusting human being, and, like, as a narrator, not likable. He goes to Holly. He's constantly name dropping projects he's worked on and publishing houses and yada yada, which is obnoxious in itself. And then he's, my cold wife, who's a shrink, and she's cold and not loving and whatever. He goes to Hollywood and meets this beautiful woman, and, like, well, I'm married, I'm not going to even be tempted, and just very misogynistic, disgusting. And then he has his son, who is fat and waddles, and he's so disappointed because he has this fat waddling son. Disgusting. And not just in their interjections, but in the story itself, really puts weight as a negative thing. And then also, like, in the story itself, for the Spaniard, yes, does a slur word that he's called. So little things like that. It did not date well. But, like, I can give some grace because of the age of the book, but just the derogatoriness towards Wait, and especially towards his own son, like, I just immediately didn't like him. The interjections that just focused on the story of the Princess Bride itself were fine, but when he would start talking about his own life, and it's not like the movie where it's just the boy and his grandfather that are interjected in, it's him as an adult. And he actually talks very little about his time with pneumonia and his grandfather reading the story. So yeah, big disappointment because I was so looking forward to this because I love the movie so much. But I'll be sticking with the movie going forward for sure. I was not happy with that book at all. So there is that one, and it did not work for any of the weekly challenges, unfortunately. So there's that. Then we had Theo of Golden, which did work for the second weekly challenge, fortunately, which was to read a book featuring friendship. And so there's kind of a misunderstanding because I had read a different book with my husband, and I finished it during the weekly challenge, but we had started it the week before. So I had asked, do we have to start and finish it within the week, or as long as like we finish it in the week of the weekly challenge, even if we started it beforehand, we can count it. And somebody answered me, no, it has to be started and finished. And then Deja jumped in and clarified that no, as long as you finish it within the week of the weekly challenge, you can count it if it works for that prompt. And then there was another thing, like if you started a book, as long as you read 50% of it within the month, you can count it. But for the path of pages, just note the pages that you actually read within June. So this one does feature friendship heavily, and I did finish it within week 2, and that's Theo of Golden by Alan Levi. And so I had already logged the other book, so I might have been able to go back and count it for the weekly challenge, but I just didn't worry about it. And since this one was kind of like I had started it in May and such, I just was like, I'll just call it good. I'll log this one for the weekly challenge and not worry about the other one. But I love Theo of Golden. I found this one through Becca Books and Bujo. She did a reading vlog where she was reading her children's names, and this is one because she has Theo, her son. And it just sounded like a book I would really enjoy. Ended up obviously giving it 3 stars. This one, I love the premise of it, and I love the ending, how it tied back in. Why Theo, who again older protagonist, which I love, why he's in this town of Golden. Basically, you have Theo. He comes to this town, and it's kind of a mystery as to why he's there. Throughout the whole book, you don't really know. And he goes into this coffee shop and he sees these portraits, and he decides he's going to buy these portraits and gift them to the people thereof. So he starts doing that, and then along the way, he makes these friendships within Golden. There's some things that like I just didn't find appropriate. Like one of the people has a daughter who's going through like hospital stays and such. And at one point, Theo like goes into her room at night to visit her, and I'm just like, that's not appropriate. And like the dad's watching on the camera, like he has a camera of the room, but even so, like, and I don't care how nice this old man is, that's not appropriate. That just gave me the ick. The situation with that, and the way a situation plays out with that didn't feel very realistic. There's almost like everybody has like these traumas and these sadnesses within their life, but it was almost like tinted in a positive light, like rose colored glasses over it. So you didn't get that depth to it. You didn't get how horrifying and how upsetting these situations would be because he didn't develop it, and it was kind of painted in this like positive light, which I didn't like. I don't think that's realistic. And then the ending, the way the author chose to do the ending, he could have done the same thing in a different way. And it just like, really, that's how that's gonna happen. Okay. But then, like I said, after that big moment, the aftermath and how Theo is tied to Golden, I really enjoyed that aspect. So even though this is a 3-star, this is a book I'm definitely going to keep. It's definitely going to stick with me. And I can see myself actually rereading it, even though I didn't fully love it. So there is that one. Then my last 3-star was Kingdom of the Cursed by Kerri Maniscalco. This is the second book in that series, and this one was in the second spot of the second 3-card spread, which you could match the card's prompt or you could go plus or minus either side of that card. And this one, I went plus, so I had pulled the 9 of swords, but I went to the 10 of swords, which is death in the synopsis. And this did work for the week 5 challenge, which is happens to be when I finished it, which was will progress your reading goals, which one of my reading goals is to keep up and with my series and continue series and complete series. So second in the series, this definitely worked for that. And I read the first one relatively not what am I trying to say? Struggling with words. I have a headache today. It hadn't been that long since I read the first one, so that was nice. And this one, yeah, I really felt like, so if you watched last week's Monday Musings, I talked about this. I really felt like this one, like the first one felt young adult, this one definitely more new adult, which I hate when series do that anyway. It's like in the case of like Throne of Glass, like it makes sense because the main character is aging throughout the series. So yeah, the later book she's going to be older and such. But in this case, she's not that much older, and it really felt like the author was trying to force the spice in there. Like, oh, I need to make this spicy and as spicy as possible, and it was forced. It didn't feel genuine to the characters. The characters lost a little bit of their chemistry because of that, and so the beginning part of the book was really like lagging, and it was just like all this forced spice and it wasn't enjoyable. And then once the plot kind of picked up and the spicy moments felt more natural to the characters, I enjoyed it a little bit more. But I wish the author had focused on the plot and had those spicy scenes feel more natural instead of forcing it, because it was very heavy-handed and it didn't fit into the story. But yeah, I still like the plot, the overall plot. We basically have Amelia and her twin gets murdered, and so she's on kind of this revenge quest and this quest to find out what is going on, why her twin was murdered and such. It also on the back it says one sister, two sinful princes, and so like, oh, this is gonna be a love triangle. It's not, like, which a lot of people don't even like love triangles, so why are you trying to promote it as one when it's not? Who knows? But yeah, very still excited to read the third book. I'm going to be trying to get it on my August TBR or September, just depending on how my July TBR shapes out. But yeah, didn't love what the author did with that one, but plot wise, character wise, I'm still enjoying that aspect. Then we had the most 4-star reads. We had 11 4-stars. Bottom of that barrel, and this is just more, it wasn't my cup of tea, and I had a hard time not comparing it to the Dungeon Crawler Carroll books, and that's Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman. I read this with my husband. This one was for, let me find it here. Where is it? Oh, it's on the second page. That's why I couldn't find it. So it was for my fourth 3-card spread. It was in the third card spot. So 3-word title. I got double points for it. It also worked for week 4's challenge, which was a book you think you'll fly through. And I did read it slower because I was reading it with my husband, but pace wise and such, is definitely a fast read. And based on reading the Dungeon Crawler Carl books and how fast we flew through them, I had a feeling it would be a fast read. And yeah, it's just a lot of like warfare and strategizing, which isn't really my thing. The characters, which I kind of understand why they were, because they're supposed to be like these naive farm kids from this like world that's basically cut off from Earth. Um, and so, but the characters just came across as really idiotic, and the humor didn't hit like in Dungeon Crawler Carl. It just didn't hit for me. And then, like I said, the political, or not the political, well, yeah, there's political, but the warfare and strategy there didn't really hit for me. Because basically, we're following this group of kids on this world where generation ships went and they landed and they, built up their farms and such. And now Earth is trying to come in and take over and extinguish them, basically. And they're doing it through a game so they can earn money as well, while they're taking out all these people on this planet. And so they're basically has this game that people can buy into to come and defeat the terrorists that have taken over this planet, even though they're not terrorists, they're all just farm kids. And there's also this whole thing with the Rhythm Mafia, which is what they're saying the terrorist group is called, but it's really just their band, that I didn't really enjoy either. So yeah, it just didn't hit for me, unfortunately. And my husband, same thing. Like, he just felt the plot was a little laggy, and he didn't have as good a time with it either. Um, but I ended up giving it a 4 stars. It was probably more of a 3-star read for me, but I gave it a 4-star because, like, there's nothing wrong with the writing. The writing's fine. It's just not a book that was for me. And so writing wise, like, I gave it a 4-star. But yeah, just didn't fully love that one either. Then we had, where are you? Oh, I already put it up. Hold on. Sitting on the baby's paws. She's behind me. Her little mud paws. We got rain. So I had this as a placeholder, so that's why it wasn't on the cart. But I read Dead Voices. I did this for my role for Reads, which was fun. And some of these worked for my TBR game, but on my July TBR, I went through all the prompts and such. And since I'm talking about Tarot Readathon, that's way too much. So, but yeah, I did this for Roll for Reads. This worked for, let's see here. This was my second 3-card spread. The first spot, which is matches the prompt or whose page number ends in this card number, which I had pulled the Hermit, so it needed to be set in a remote location or end in the number 9. This is set in a remote location. All the books I got for the first spot on the 3-card spread, I just did the book prompt. I didn't do the number. But this one's set in this remote cabin where they're snowed in, so it definitely works. So we're following Ollie, Coco, and Brian again, from the first book, Small Spaces, and in this case, we're following them, and they go. Ollie's dad gets like these tickets to go to this resort or whatever. He wins this opportunity to go to this resort. And then we have Coco's mom, and there's kind of something that might be going on there, which Ollie in the first book, the reason they moved to this place is because her mom has passed away. And so she's dealing with grief, and now she's having to deal with the fact that her dad might be ready to move on, and start a romance with somebody new. And even though she loves, Coco and such, she's not quite sure how she feels about that. But in this case, there's trapped, the power goes out, and there's these ghosts that are haunting this place. Ollie and Coco are seeing things, and then this weird ghost hunter shows up. And there's just some things with that, like that, just I couldn't quite suspend my disbelief. Like, the parents just like, oh yeah, go ghost hunting with this rando guy that just showed up while we try to figure out the generator and such. And it's like, really, you're just gonna send them off with this rando guy? Like, no. And then they also use a Ouija board in here, which I just don't like. I just didn't like that, because I do believe in that kind of thing, and I just don't like the Ouija board in a middle grade book. Like, I just didn't like it. And also, we end up following Coco and Ollie, but at one point all three of them get separated and we don't follow Brian at all, which just felt very weird. Like, you get caught up, like, he tells the girls what happened while he was off by himself, but it just felt weird. Like, I really felt like we should have gotten all three perspectives why they were separated, so that felt a little short for me as well. But really love that series. Perfect spooky vibes. Like, I love that middle grade horror, and I'm actually going to be reading the next 2 books in July, so that will be a lot of fun. Then we had Final Target by Nora Roberts. This is the other book I read with my husband, the one where it's like, I didn't know if I could count it for the friendship, because in my mind, like, it's a romance, it's more about their relationship, but friendships play a big part in her healing journey and of her friendship with somebody new. Well, actually, her old friendship and a new friendship help in the situation she finds herself in. So we're basically following Arden, I want to say. Yeah. And she's a writer, and this guy keeps showing up to her signings. And so she's like, okay, what's going on? And it turns very sinister. And then she ends up moving to this town, and in her healing process, the author definitely goes there. So, trigger warning for SA and R and such, like in stalking and whatnot. Definitely trigger warnings for that. So keep that in mind, especially because like Nora Roberts, like Nora tends to allude to things, then like put them on page, and here it's very much on page. But this one, let's see, did it work for anything? I can't remember. Yeah, so this was my third 3-card spread, and it was in the second spot, so matches card prompt or plus and minus one side. This matched the prompt. I pulled Knight of Cups, which was a book with a character going through emotional turmoil, which is definitely the case here. And yeah, it was definitely better. I feel like Nora Roberts more recently just really hasn't been doing well on her writing. Like, she's older now. She puts out 3 books a year. She does her romantic suspense in spring. She does her series book, which normally is a trilogy, in November, and then she does her JD Robb books. And I think at this point, like, she's just putting them out to put them out. And so the last few ones haven't been good. I enjoyed this one. It does lag a lot in the middle, but overall, I actually really enjoyed this one. And I was very happy about that because lately they have not been hitting. So yeah, I had a great time with that one overall, and I love reading with my husband, of course. So there is that one. Then we had The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. This worked for Kim's game. I needed to read a book under 200 pages, and this one's 172. I also added it in for Tarot Readathon. Again, that third spot, which, let's me see here, was the second 3-card spread. For the third spot, I pulled 8 of Swords, so a book that intimidates you, and then double points for the 3-word title. And this one intimidated me because I read The Time Machine and really struggled to get through it. And so I was scared going into this one that I would struggle with this one. And overall, I actually really enjoyed it. Again, kind of lags a little bit in the middle, but I did like how the author, you're starting off, you have this invisible man that shows up in this town. And then in the middle, he goes back to how, like, this man's story and how he became invisible, and then goes back to the present day timeline. So I kind of liked how it split up like that. But we're following this invisible man and kind of his um, fall into madness, and like the town folks realizing he's invisible and kind of like their reactions to him and such. And I actually really had a good time with this. Obviously, gave it a 4-star. The middle is what lost it for me. Even though I enjoyed the setup of it, it did lag a little bit, and that scientific, like how he made himself invisible, was just like, I didn't enjoy it. It was a little bit too much for my brain. But overall, I had a really good time with this. I'm very excited. I did recently find War of the Worlds in a little free library, so I had that. And then I also have The Sleeper Awakes, I think, still to read by this author. So I have both of those. And I don't know if he's written anything else. I'm not like fully familiar with everything this author's written. But I read The Island of Dr. Moreau. I read The Time Machine, and now I've read this. And so I have those other 2 that are on my shelves. But yeah, and I don't think this one worked for the weekly challenges at all. No. So, but it did work for a tarot pull, so that was nice. Then this one was extra, but I was able to make it work for the weekly challenge. So week 1 weekly challenge, which features romance, and that was The Ministry of Time by Kaliane Bradley. my Libby hold came in, and it was funny because my Libby hold came in, and I had done a Pango order. And when I do a Pango order, like I'm always looking for a specific book. But then I look to see what else the seller has that I might be interested in. And so I was buying a specific book, but I saw this one, so I'd already ordered it before my Libby hold came in. And then I listened to it, and I was like, ooh, I love it. And it's perfect because I already ordered a physical copy. So obviously, I didn't fully love this. I think things weren't fully explained, or I just didn't fully understand. I was listening to it, but we're basically following. I don't think you get her name, because I was trying to look it up too, and I don't think you get her name. But we're following this woman, and she works for the Ministry of Time as a bridge. So basically, they're pulling these people from the past that are about to die, and they pull them from the past to the future, and then the bridges are there to teach them about the current century, and just help them with the transition and report any problems or anything like that. And they're just seeing how they react to being pulled forward in time, if they can survive it and such like that. And they end up falling in love from the bridge, and the guy she gets paired with end up falling in love. So there is a romance there. There is this mystery thriller element to it, which I really liked. And then you have the historical element as well. And I think the character is based on a real person, but obviously it's fictionalized. And so you have this thriller mystery element that is there, which keeps the plot going and such. And yeah, I had an overall great time. Like I said, I just didn't fully think it was fully explained, um, or I didn't fully grasp it. But yeah, overall, I really like this one. So there is that one. And even though it was extra, I'm glad it was able to work for a weekly challenge, so it got some points in there. Then let's see, we had Big Girl Blitz by Danielle Allen. This is the third book in the series, the Curve series. Really enjoyed the first two. I gave all of these 4 stars. There's just like little things that didn't quite work for me in each one. This one we're following Jasmine, who was my favorite of the 3 women. I found her the most relatable, so I was really looking forward to getting to her story. And Lamar, and Jasmine, I really like the way this author does, like, is a romance, so it's obviously focused on that, but it feels more realistic in, like, it's not tunnel vision on the romance. They're still going through real life. And that's definitely the case here, especially with Jasmine. Trigger warning, her aunt is on hospice, so she's dealing with that. And there for her aunt and such, and then trying to navigate this relationship. And I just think, like, that part, the emotions there was so strong. The relationship in here is actually the weakest part of the story, and I think the conflict went on too long, because they both obviously have other things going on, and so, like, there will just be friends situation, but of course they develop feelings, and I just felt that conflict went on. He's telling her, like, talk to me. He's not doing the same thing, and I just wish that had resolved itself a little bit earlier, or came in a little bit later, like they were happy with their situation, and then that came in later, something, because it just went on too long. And also, there's like this bullying element which plays into the conflict, which makes sense, and I did like that aspect of the story, but again, just with the conflict, it just went on too long. And so that's what dropped it down for me. This one it was in the second spot of my 4th 3-card spread, and so I could match the prompt or go plus and minus. I actually pulled Wheel of Fortune, which was a mood read. This is definitely a mood read for me. I wanted to get to it since I bought it, and but I did use it. I went +1, which was Justice, which is a BIPOC, queer, or disabled author, BIPOC author, and it did work for week 4 challenge, which was a book you'll think you'll fly through, and I definitely felt like I would fly through this, and when I was actually reading it, I certainly did. So there is that one. And then let's see here. Then we had Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke. This is another one. I think I added in. And so I pulled it for my fourth 3-card spread for my first spot, which was Four of Coins, a book with rich people or wealthy character, or ends in 4. And I just went with the rich people, wealthy characters because that definitely plays a part in here. And it did not work for any of the weekly challenges. But yeah, gave this one a 4-star. I really, really loved this. I had a blast with it. I like the way the author set the story up by going back and forth, like your present day, then you go back to the 1800s timeline, and then you go to like when she's just fresh into college, a naive, coming from ultra religious, upraising and such, and going to college and getting exposed to that, meeting her husband, and how she becomes this trad wife influencer, and how that whole situation came about, and then back and forth between the 1800s timeline. I really love this. She has nannies, like she's a trad wife, but she has nannies and such, 2 nannies behind the scenes and a bunch of workers and such. And then her in-laws are like, he's a presidential candidate, and he like gives them $5 million to get their farm started and such. So definitely wealth here. And yeah, my biggest thing is some of the motivations for the secondary characters didn't make sense to me. I didn't think that fit, but it definitely made sense for our main character, who is really unlikable. But like, I'm like, I don't mind reading an unlikable character if what they're doing makes sense for that character, and that was definitely the case here. And yeah, I had a fantastic time with that. Like, I really, really had a great time with that. So there is that one. Then we had The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern for a 4-star read. This one was, let's see here. For my third 3-card spread, in the first spot, which is The Lovers, a book featuring romance or ends in the number 6, obviously use the prompt. And this one did it work for a weekly challenge? Let's see here. It did not work for a weekly challenge, unfortunately. But if I read it that first week, it would have. But yeah, I enjoyed this overall. The biggest thing for me is I struggled with the flow of the story, because we're jumping around between time periods, point of views, and it's not like linear at all. And even though and locations, and even though it says like at the beginning of the chapter where you're at in the time, like what year, what location, and such, like it was just the flow of the story was a little bit hard for me to follow. And then like talking about this deadly competition between these two, and it's really not, like, it is deadly, but it's not. um if you read it, you kind of know. But basically, we're following these two characters, Celia and Marco, and Celia's dad and then Marco's like mentor have been doing these competitions and such, and so they're pitted against each other and they're trained. And then the venue for this competition is the circus, and they're constantly trying to just like one up each other and such. And then we're also following this other character who plays a part in it, as well, and like when he's young, when he first encounters the circus and such, and then when he's older. And yeah, overall, the vibes of this, absolutely loved. I liked following these characters. I liked the romance between them. I liked the setting and the vibes of the circus. And it just like shows up, and nobody knows when it's going to show up. And then you have like these group of people that are like trying to follow him. And it's just a lot of fun, and the whimsy in here and such, like, so enjoyable. But like I said, the synopsis, like, your expectations and what you actually get are a little bit different. And then just the flow of it was a little bit off for me. Was the whole thing with it, but really had a great time. I'm so glad I finally read that, because that's been on my TBR for quite a long time. Then we had The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. This one was for my extra poll, which I got The King of Swords, which was a book with scientific elements. And this one, let's see here. Did it work for... It did not work for a weekly challenge, unfortunately. But yeah, I read The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle and The Devil in the Dark Water by this author. Loved both of those. This one, like, I really enjoyed it. Probably the weakest of the three for me, but I still had a fantastic time with it. So we're following this group of people that are trapped on this island, because there's this mysterious fog that has killed off the rest of the world. And they have these 3 scientists on this island that are keeping the fog at bay. Well, one of the scientists gets murdered, and they all end up losing their memories. And so the scientist kind of had like this trap. So if she ever got murdered, that the safety measures would fail and then the fog would come in. And there's like this AI character, and it's like you have to solve the murder, because then there's a loophole. If you solve and find who murdered her, then I can reactivate. But until that happens, I can't reactivate. And so this fog's going to kill you. So there's like a timeline. And I really like how it's set up, because you're getting to know the island and the characters initially, and then the murder happens. And I love the narration because it's being told through this AI, and I love that aspect, and I love the characters, and I love the mystery element and everything like that. um yeah, I really had a great time with this. I don't know why I didn't give it a 5 star. Um, there's nothing I can think of specifically now. I'd have to go look at my review, but I did overall had a really good time with this. And oh, that's what it was. I know now. Sorry, I was like, wait, I thought of it. It popped in my head. The mystery element and the who done it went on way too long. Like, so many reveals, and I know some people like thriller and mysteries that do that, where they have like a bunch of reveals back to back back. But in this case, like, that went on way too long, and by the time we got to the actual reveal of who done it and everything, I was over it and I really didn't care. So like, it just went on way too long for me, that part of it. Other than that, I absolutely love this. So there was that one. Then let's see here. We had Paladin Strength by T. Kingfisher. This is book 2 of the Saint of Steel series. Loved book 1. This one loved as well. I actually think I enjoyed this more than book 1, but still just a little bit, off as far as balance wise. This one did work for week 1's weekly challenge, which was a book featuring romance, because it definitely had that. It was for the first 3-card spread in the first spot, which I pulled the 9 of Swords, which is a book with mental health rep or ends in 9. And this series, they've lost their god. Like, these paladins have lost their god, and they're definitely dealing with the mental health repercussions of that. And then Clara, our main female character, and here something happens at the beginning that kind of sets her on this quest, and she's definitely dealing with the repercussions of that, like PTSD and such. So it definitely works for the mental health rep aspect. But I really love this one. So we're following Istvan and Clara, and they end up on this quest. Like, she's trying to find her stolen. She's a nun, and her order has got been kidnapped, and so she's on this quest to find it. Ishvan's on this other quest that starts in the first book, and trying to continue that mystery, discover things about that. So he's on this quest, and he ends up, helping Clara along the way. And of course, there's a romance, and there's a mystery. Like, Clara has a secret and such, and I really liked it. This one, again, in the first book, I felt this, like, the balance was kind of off between the different mysteries and the romance and such. And this one, it made a little bit more sense, because, and it even, like for Clara's timeline, like, it kind of gets forgotten for a moment, but, like, it even says, like, there's nothing we can do at this point, we just have to wait. So that balance, even though it was still a little off, it made a little bit more sense. But that's the main thing, like, just kind of the balance there is off. And also, I don't think it ended very well in regards to the plotline that started in the first book, because I'm a little confused, because based on where it ended here, like, does that wrap it up, or is it going to continue in the other series or the rest of the series? Like, I don't know. And so that wrap up wasn't very clear to me. So I would have liked it to be wrapped up a little bit in a more developed way, I guess. But still really love this. Like, Kingfisher just is such a great writer. And I can't wait to read the other 2 books in this series. So there was that one. Then we had Small Favors by Erin A. Craig. This is my family book club book. It wasn't for a tarot pull, but it did work for a weekly challenge. So weekly challenge number 4, which was a book you'll think you'll fly through. It did work for that. So even though it wasn't for a tarot pull, my niece, no, she didn't quite finish it. She didn't make the live show or the live discussion, and she didn't finish it, she said, but she started it and she almost finished it. My mom and my sister both started it but didn't finish it. I actually love this. Obviously 4 stars. I think like there's kind of like plot holes that just kind of got dropped and never addressed again. But I really love the vibes of this, and I wish the watchers, like that aspect and the small favors, had been more prevalent in there. And the bees as well, because the bees, are all over the cover and such, play a big part in the beginning, and then kind of just get forgotten about. And so that's kind of where it dropped down. But vibe wise, I still think about this book. I still think about these characters. I absolutely love this. And so we're following Ellery, and she lives in this isolated community of Amity Falls. And the town, their ancestors has set this up, and they're like keeping like all these bells and protections to keep the monsters in the forest away from town. And then there's these strange mutations that start happening and such, and the town's like strange things happening in the town and arousing suspicions of neighbors and starting infighting between the neighbors and such. And so yeah, I absolutely love this. There's a romance in here that I really enjoyed, and I just had a fantastic time with this. Like I said, if those little things hadn't been forgotten and like just kind of like lost in the rest of the story, I would have definitely given this a 5-star. And like the situation with the parents, like you never really get an answer to what happened there, So anyway, really loved it though. Absolutely enjoyed that one. Then we had 3 5-stars. The first of which was just an extra book. Again, my Libby hold came in. I need to take off this sticker. I normally do that right away, but I just put it in. But I got this from Pingo, and it's Gone Before Goodbye by Reese Witherspoon and Harlan Coben. But obviously I listened to this one. This was just an extra, but I think did it work? Yeah, it worked for week 2's challenge, which was a book featuring friendship, which in this case you have this couple and their friend, and they are like army medics basically, and they go to like refugee camps and such, and they've started this organization together. Something happens, and so we're following the woman, and she hasn't heard Maggie. They haven't heard from their friend in a while, but she still like checks on his house and such. And so she gets pulled in to do this reconstructive surgery, under very suspicious means, but she's struggling. She recently lost her medical license, really struggling. And so we're following her, and she gets pulled into this situation, and then there has ties to their group and such. So very, very fun. I loved listening to the audiobook. I think it's a full cast. There's definitely multiple narrators. Reese Witherspoon's the main one, though, and she does get very, very dramatic at points, but it was fun. I just had a great time. I did not see the end coming, but I had a fantastic time with this one. And so, like I said, it was just an extra one. Did not work for Tarot Readathon other than that weekly challenge. Then we had The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. This worked for Kim's game. I needed a book we had a group prompt that was by the hundreds, so we each had 10 people had to read like one person read less than 100, 100 to 199. And so I did the 200 range. So from 200 to 299, this is 269. So it worked for that. And it also worked for, it was an extra book I added on for the third spot in my first 3-card spread, which I got the Sun. I had it previously for the Princess Bride as well, but I pulled it twice. So a joyful or fun book, and bonus points or double points if it was a 3-word title. So obviously The Wild Robot. I watched this movie a while ago and absolutely thought it was so adorable. I got this book and I love the book just as much. Like, I think it's really cute, but it has also good plot and it has good lessons for children and good discussions you can have through them. I like the nature aspect. And yeah, had such a fun time. We're following this robot, Roz, and her ship that she's on crashes and she gets stranded on this wild island, accidentally gets turned on by the animals, and then she's having to learn how to communicate with the animals and live there in the wild and such. And then later on, like, something happens, and so she's having to navigate that with her friends. And she also adopts a little gooseling, so she becomes a mom, and it's just such a cute story. I absolutely love it. So I had such a fun time with that. Definitely 5 stars. And then the last book, which was my top book of the month as far as enjoyment, was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This one, let's see. So it was the second spot of my first 3-card spread, and I pulled Judgment, which was a book previously DNF'd or currently reading for a long time, which I don't really have those, so I did the plus or minus. I went plus, which was the world seen all over the book of space. Obviously, all the Hunger Games books are all over the book of space, and so I went with this one. And I wasn't expecting to enjoy this one because obviously President Snow is not a likable character, and this is a prequel to the Hunger Games following his character. And this is my favorite of the series. I absolutely love it. Like, again, I don't mind reading an unlikable character if it makes sense. If they make sense for that character, like what they're doing and such. And you really see, like, I love when you have like a villain origin story and you see like those markers of who they're gonna become, and kind of like the situations and because of those personality traits or whatever, and how they become who they become. And I like the way the author tied District 12 into this story and connections to that from the original Hunger Games. I absolutely love that. And just like the psychological element of the choices that Snow is making and such, and this relationship he has. This did work for week 1, which was featuring a romance, because there's definitely, it's a toxic romance, but there is a romance in here. So it definitely worked for that. I'm just okay, yeah. It was just for Terror Readathon. It wasn't for my game or anything. That's where I was getting a little lost. But yeah, I love this. Like, I just, like I said, that toxic relationship and just those markers of how Snow developed into what he became, and those ties, the way the author tied in District 12. Fantastic. Definitely my top book of the month. But we also have my top 3. Like I said, that doesn't necessarily correspond to star rating. It's just the books that really stick out in my mind. My top book of the month that's really sticking with me, and like I said, I still think about these characters and such, is Small Favors. I love the isolated small village. That really worked for me. The creepy forest and creatures, and then the way the author was like seeds of doubts to full on chaos. I absolutely love that. My second favorite or most impactful book of the month is The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. Again, that isolated setting, I really like that. So you have that isolated island, the way the amnesia played into this. Like, no, even the murderer didn't know they were a murderer, so that was really fun. And just the narrator of that AI narrating it, I really love that. So that was that. And then we had My third most impactful that's going to stick with me is Theo of Golden by Alan Levi. The overall premise of this old man coming and buying these portraits and gifting them to these people and learning their stories, I absolutely love that. Theo's tie in to Golden, like the reasons he's there, and you learn that at the end. I absolutely love that as well. I thought that was done really well, and I love an older main character. I really like older main characters. So there is that. That's all the books I read in June. Like I said, 19 books, which is fantastic. That's a lot of reading, but I really had a fun time reading all these books. I really enjoyed participating in Tarot Readathon. So thank you to Deja and Noelle and all the co-hosts, especially for my team, to did so much work for this readathon. I absolutely had such a fun time, and I probably will participate. Just depends. Like I said, because I love the idea of readathons, but I tend to take them way too seriously, and then I get a little burnt out. So we'll see if I participate next year. But I really did have a fantastic time, and I think I probably will participate again at some point. I would love to know if you participated, which team you were on, or if you've read any of these books, or if you're interested in any of these books now that I've talked about them. If you just want to let me know you're here and you're helping to support the channel, you can always leave a rabbit or maybe a dog emoji for this little cutie back here. Any type of animal emoji you would like down in the comments below. It just helps support the channel by commenting, and it lets me know you are here. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and leave you guys here. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.